Hello and welcome to the Nutrition Digest podcast. We are your hosts and registered dietitians, Alicia Kugler, Tara Valenti, and Summer Merrick Williams, here to dish up the nutrition tea, dispel the myths, inspire, inform, and hopefully entertain. Today, we're tackling a buzzy and often misunderstood topic, cortisol. From TikTok trends to cortisol support supplements, it's become a wellness buzzword. But how much of it is hype and what really helps? And before we dive into all of that fun stuff on cortisol, I really want to talk to Alicia about her race that just happened. Alicia just did her very first Olympic distance triathlon, so we want to hear all about it.
Yeah, and I had the interview with Erin before, and I think that actually really helped because then it helped me set up those ABC goals instead of kind of thinking about the best, realistic, and worst case scenario. I'm really happy with how it went. I finished 17 minutes faster than I had, even my best, my A goal, I beat it by 17 minutes. So I'm really happy. I crushed the swim. I was cruising through. My parents and my partner were walking on the shore beside me the whole time, which was super fun. Cool. Every single time I went to go breathe on my right side, because I alternate breathing, I could see them, which was super fun to actually see them along the way. And my whole goal actually wasn't to do well or come out on top. It was, I just wanted to have a blast with the day.
Cool.
Did you?
Yeah. So when I was in the swim line, instead of getting anxious inside my head, I was talking to all these people. There were some people that it was their first race, and I was imparting these are my little nuggets of information that I've learned in my time doing sprints. When I was doing the bike, I was just having a blast, just kind of riding up the hills, which is really nice that I trained in San Francisco and then went to a very flat Toronto.
Was it easy?
Oh, it was so easy. And everyone else was dying on their bike, and I'm just like, I did choke on my granola bars on the bike, and so I learned that I'm like, hey, I gotta do something different than granola bars because they would not work for me.
It's a lot of chewing.
Yeah, it's a lot of chewing.
And dry.
Dry, that's the thing.
Dry.
It was dry. I was choking on the dryness.
Well, also, wasn't it crazy hot out?
Yeah. So on the bike, on the swim, it was overcast and cloudy, and I was like, why did this happen later? Because when I got on the run, it was 108 degrees Fahrenheit or 42 Celsius with the Humidex, so it was hot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun.
I would have died. I'm so not heat acclimated.
Well, and that's why I went a few weeks in advance to get heat acclimated.
Okay, so because I have a feeling quite a few of our listeners, and myself included, are not triathletes, what is the Olympic distance? How far is that?
Mm-hmm. So it's 1.5 kilometer swim, and then it's a 40 kilometer bike ride and a 10 kilometer run.
Okay.
And then what were your A, B, and C goals?
So for my swim, it was 35-minute swim, 45-minute swim, or an hour swim in the worst case scenario. For my bike, my A goal was an hour 30. My B goal was an hour 40, hour 45. My C goal was 2 hours. Then for my run, it was my A goal was 60 to 65 minutes. My B goal was 70 to 75 minutes. And then my C goal was if I had to walk it, it was okay, I just need to finish in 90 minutes. And so I actually did 32 minutes for my swim, an hour 25 for my bike, and then 62 minutes for my run.
Nice. Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, carb loading. It's magic.
Okay, so I do have one question, and I love to ask everybody when they do a race or a triathlon, what was your post-race meal?
I really wanted, there's a barbecue place that's Michelin star in Toronto. I really wanted that, but my family didn't want that. So I had just a beef sandwich from a local place. It's I had that all the time. It wasn't really anything special.
No. Okay, I am infuriated.
No.
And then
should
I
get
basically
whatever
had to
you
run
want.
to the airport, and so I didn't really get my post-race anything, and on race day I ate okay. I had the sandwich, and then I had a muffin, and I think I can't remember what else I had in the plane. It wasn't really anything special in terms of food on
That's
race
messed up.
day. Even the day after, I was just trying to eat normal food. I haven't really had a post-race celebration. I think we're trying to go out for dinner on Saturday night. Okay,
you better.
It's a mic drop moment. I kind of want to walk out of the room right now. I'm so angry.
I agree. I'm
no.
What? How could your family? I'm sorry, not to throw shade.
Love your family,
but they were there for you. Whatever. But also, you need to get whatever you want on the planet Earth after a performance like that.
Yeah.
I remember one time my ex did an Ironman, and we were in our camper van. We were up in Santa Rosa, and he was wrecked after. And it was such a bummer because he put in all the training, and just the nutrition just wasn't totally perfect. But it took a while for him to get hungry. we fully ordered multiple pizzas to the camper van so that we could just like gorge on whatever. And we had beer and we had pizza. That's how it's supposed to go. That's what I was
sounds like
expecting.
heaven.
I know. It's like the best evening ever.
All I wanted after was barbecue, French fries, and ice cream, and I got none of it.
Oh my God. Okay, you have to make up for that. You have to make up for
Maybe
that.
that's why I'm ravenously hungry.
Maybe because you aren't satisfied. You didn't get what you deserved.
No.
I will say some of the best memories of my life are post-race meals.
What do you usually go for?
I'm usually traveling. So the last marathon I did, I was in Amsterdam, and oddly enough, we went out for German food, and I had schnitzel.
That'd be really good.
And it hit, dude. It was and German beer. And it was like so good. And the time before that, I did the LA marathon. So we went down to Manhattan Beach and we got filet mignon tacos.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
really
they
good.
were, oh my God, with homemade, not homemade, but like whatever. They made their own tortillas. They were to die for. It was amazing.
That sounds so good.
So yeah, I don't know what I'll have next time, but I'm sure I will make it a treat.
My first half marathon, well, my only half marathon, I got to choose where we did it. And so since it was my choice, I figured obviously it needs to end in wine. So we went up north, went up to Washington and did this wine run. I don't know anything about running and runs and marathons and whatever. Didn't really think to look at the terrain. If you run on vineyards, they're hilly.
Yeah.
So that was not the most successful. However, it finished in wine. So once you kind of chill out, we had a grilled cheese. They had grilled cheese sandwiches, all this like really yummy cheese, crackers, food like that, and then just wine. And then my first sprint triathlon, that finished, that was up in Sacramento, finished at a beer garden. So
Nice.
Beer, I think I had a burger, definitely fries.
I'm noticing a trend here. The post-run beverage.
Yeah, I don't drink, so it wasn't really a thing for me.
Yeah. Not necessarily the best choice for recovery, I will say, but moderation, right? Okay. We need to transition to our topic. So we are talking all about cortisol today. We're going to cover what cortisol is and why your body needs it, what happens when it is chronically elevated, common signs of cortisol imbalance, and we're going to dispel a myth that we've been hearing about recently, which is all about intense exercise and cortisol and some fear mongering that's been going on about why some particular groups, oftentimes women are the target of this, should be avoiding high intensity exercise for fear that it will make their cortisol levels worse. So we'll talk about that as well.
But Summer, first, what is cortisol and what does it do to your body?
Let me tell you everything about cortisol. Cortisol 101. Students, time to pay attention. So cortisol is a steroid hormone that's made by the adrenal gland. It's regulated by the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And what it does is it helps regulate our metabolism, our blood sugar, blood pressure, inflammation and immune function, and sleep and wake cycles. Also, it follows a daily rhythm. It's high in the morning and low in the evenings. It has short-term spikes, which are totally normal and actually help us to respond to stress. So not all cortisol is bad. Think of the fight or flight reaction that we get. And then problems arise though when there's chronic elevation of our cortisol levels. When it's chronically high due to a number of factors, that's where we get into a little bit of trouble. So think of cortisol like your body's alarm system. It's useful in short bursts, but harmful if it's always on.
So we've heard about kind of like those bursts, and so why is it, or what happens that might keep cortisol like chronically elevated? Because I think there's a lot of things that we hear are like the fear mongering about is like your cortisol levels are chronically inflamed or chronically elevated. So the most common cause is ongoing stress, whether that's mental stress, emotional stress, trauma, shit that's happening at work. If you're in, I feel like the tech industry right now, they're under a lot of chronic stress, and all my clients that are in that industry are losing their brains and might have elevated cortisol levels. Not saying that's the case, but might be.
Or if you live in the US in general.
Or if you are a millennial.
Yes,
There you
this
go.
is very, very true.
I don't know
Trying
about
to
that.
buy a house as a millennial. If you're someone that you're struggling with your sleep if it's irregular patterns, if you're a shift worker, if you're like someone that's like, you regulate your schedule is different days, that could be a big thing.
If you're a new parent.
Yeah, that's a big one. If you're overtraining a lot, so we hear this term a lot. I feel like there's a lot of, we'll get into this when we talk about exercise, but overtraining is a buzzword in the fitness industry. And that is one that can really elevate cortisol. If you're under eating or you're restricting your food quite a bit, I see this a lot with the bodybuilding community and certain elements of the fitness community that are maybe restricting or have orthorexic tendencies, or women in general that have lived, or men in general, people that have lived through the 90s and lived through diet culture, which seems to be having a little bit of an insurgence right now, which I want to pull out my hair about.
Yeah, I think women in perimenopause and menopause fall into this trap a lot. I see that being an issue that contributes to that vicious cycle of weight gain.
And also, just to piggyback on that, as someone who may be in that myself, the other thing is we grew up in that era where the way to lose weight or maintain or manage your weight was always calorie restriction. There was nothing besides calorie restriction. We were not taught healthy fueling, training, eating for sustainability, fueling our body properly. It was only
Less is more.
Less is more. Yeah. All through
And cardio. I feel like it was like eat less and just do a crazy amount of cardio.
A combination of the restriction, under eating in conjunction with the overtraining coupled together.
Yeah.
So, but the question that I have is it actually overtraining or is it just under recovering and under fueling?
Right. Yeah. I think the word, like you were saying, the term overtraining gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And oftentimes used in the wrong context.
Yes. Because I feel like for a lot of people, it's not necessarily overtraining. It's just under recovering and not doing the right, not resting enough. Yeah. Another variable. Blood sugar instability can play a big factor in this. That can be someone that maybe has a condition like diabetes or insulin resistance, but also those individuals that aren't thinking about balancing blood sugar throughout the day by pairing their carb sources with proteins or fats to keep things nice and stable, or someone that maybe has lots of stress, so they're using sugar as a crutch to kind of like a lot of these things can be very, very interlinked to each other, and one can kind of attach to the other. And then chronic inflammation and illness, and I know this one just from like personal experience with a lot of the autoimmunes that I've had. I've gone through phases where I've been really unwell, and when I've had blood work done, my cortisol was like super, super high. And it's very eye-opening to be like, it wasn't necessarily that I was doing too much or eating too little or anything like that. It was just my body was just pissed the hell off. Signs that your cortisol might be elevated. So these are things for you to pay attention to if you're like, I wonder if my cortisol is elevated, and a lot of these things sound familiar to me. You might be tired but wired. So say, for example, during the daytime, you might be exhausted, really hard, low motivation, whatever it may be. But then at nighttime, when you're wanting to wind down, you're like, I am awake, I cannot fall asleep. Or you fall asleep and then you wake up and you're like, I'm so wide awake in the middle of the night. Belly fat being on the higher end, so visceral adipose tissue that you might be measuring through like a DEXA, can be high despite exercising and maybe despite doing seemingly good things with your food. If you're having a lot of sleep disturbances, that can be a sign. If you're finding that you're craving sugar throughout the day or craving salty food, that can be a sign. Things like mood issues, anxiety issues, if you're like super irritable, you're on edge, someone does something little and you explode in their face. If you're finding that you're ending up with like blood sugar crashes despite being intentional about how you're pairing your food, maybe you're getting like dizziness between meals, that could be a sign your cortisol is elevated. And then for women, the big thing is irregular menstrual cycles, which I see quite commonly with women that have some cortisol dysregulation going on. Listen to your body if things are being weird with your period. That's usually a warning sign that your body is very unhappy.
I will also note too, with these signs, elevated cortisol doesn't have to be a mystery. You don't have to only self-detect. You can go get it checked. Like you can go get it checked. We do blood tests for our clients all the time, and cortisol is one of the things that I will usually want to check depending on what the client is experiencing. Just go ask your doctor for a test. It doesn't have to be a big question mark. You can go figure out what your levels are and track them over time to see if it's a chronic elevation or something that might just be temporary.
Yeah, and I will say the best measure for blood work is doing it more the morning cortisol readings, because I know usually doctors will offer, well, do you want random or do you want morning? Morning is going to give us more insight into what's actually happening. Random could be affected by like a meal, could be affected by exercise activity, versus doing it fasted first thing in the morning is going to give us a bigger picture of what's actually happening.
So I want to dive into nutrition and lifestyle strategies for cortisol balance. Obviously, we want to eat enough, especially carbohydrates. We talk about carbs a lot in this podcast. They are your body's favorite fuel source. So we want to make sure that we're not omitting carbs from our diet. We want to build our meals around protein, fiber, and healthy fats. When we think about balanced meals, those are the 3 check marks you want to have in your mind. Is there protein? Do I have fiber-rich carbohydrates? And am I getting a sufficient amount of healthy fats? So really focusing on balance there. Not skipping breakfast. So I know that this is a relatively controversial topic and people get like very intense when we bring this one up. But if you're struggling with chronically elevated cortisol levels, adding breakfast into your morning routine can have a major benefit. And the reason for that is that it regulates cortisol peaks. So eating breakfast in the morning can actually help to blunt the morning cortisol spike. So when we wake up in the morning, our cortisol is naturally a little bit elevated. But if you're having problems with overly elevated cortisol, having breakfast in the morning can basically bring your cortisol levels a little bit down, more regulated. It also signals energy availability to your body. So when you eat, especially carbs and protein, it signals to your body that energy is available, which helps you shift your body out of that stress-related fasted state that we all wake up in the morning. Without food, your body thinks that it needs to stay in more of like an alert mode, which means your cortisol levels are going to be higher. It also helps to support blood sugar stability if you're eating breakfast every single day. Cortisol helps maintain blood sugar when you're fasting. If you skip breakfast, cortisol has to work even harder to keep glucose stable, which means that your levels are going to be higher for longer. So 3 reasons that it's a good idea to eat breakfast in the morning if elevated cortisol is an issue for you.
Also, it doesn't have to be a big breakfast. Just putting something in your stomach to get the body going is all you really need if you're not a breakfast person. I get that a lot. I'm sure you guys do too, of people just telling you, I don't eat breakfast. I am not hungry. I get it. I'm one of those people. I'm not naturally hungry in the morning, but I do my very best to get something, even if it's something small in first thing in the morning.
Half a banana.
Exactly. That's all it needs to be.
The viral protein coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's just protein in your coffee.
Oh, yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a brand.
No, well, there is protein coffees, but I think just having like, if you're someone that already drinks coffee in the morning, putting protein powder in it and having some sort of carb on the side. And I think also it doesn't have to be like the moment that you open up your eyes. I think there's some, again, this is going back to the fear mongering on social media. I think a lot of them are like, you have to eat right away. You can give yourself half an hour. You can give yourself an hour.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be when you first open up your eyes in the morning to get the fuel into your body.
Right. Speaking of morning routine, caffeine on an empty stomach, generally not recommended. Caffeine triggers the adrenal glands to release cortisol, even if you're not in psychological stress. So if we are pouring caffeine into our empty stomach, there's just no buffer there in terms of food. It gets absorbed very, very quickly. And in the morning, if your cortisol levels are already high and then you add caffeine to it or just pour coffee on there, it can just cause that cortisol to increase. And if that's what you're trying to avoid, caffeine on an empty stomach in the morning is not the way to go, even though that's how I start my day every day.
Just hydrate, a little snack with that coffee.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's my routine.
We're going to dietitian you, Tara.
I know. But my cortisol levels, I have had them checked and they are good. So I don't need to worry.
Then carry on.
At this time. I will keep doing that. Also, hydrating regularly. So dehydration is basically physical stress, which is going to increase your cortisol levels. And that's just a generally good way to look at this. If we are increasing our physical stress in any capacity, that has the potential to increase our cortisol levels, which isn't necessarily problematic unless you are suffering from chronically elevated cortisol. And that's where you want to kind of laser focus on all the different aspects of your life and try to make sure that you are establishing some level of balance. We also want to make sure that we're eating anti-inflammatory foods. We should all be doing this anyway. These are things like berries, greens, fish, turmeric, olive oil. We also want to include magnesium-rich foods into our diet, so avocado, dark chocolate, pumpkin seeds. For athletes, we want to make sure we prioritize pre- and post-training meals. This just ties into making sure that your body is adequately fueled so that we're not adding an extra layer of stress that isn't necessary. For folks who have autoimmune or inflammatory conditions, making sure we're consuming gentle fiber, omega-3s, again, these are anti-inflammatory foods, and avoiding any type of extremes. So we don't want to throw our body off in any kind of extreme way. And then if there are immunity concerns, we want to emphasize probiotics, zinc, and vitamin C.
Okay, so to go on from there, I want to share some strategies, some lifestyle strategies that we can employ in order to help us regulate our cortisol. First of all, we can set consistent wake and sleep times. We see it all the time, how important it is to stay consistent throughout the week, even on the weekends, but that's going to really help us regulate our cortisol. Also, as Tara mentioned, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night and trying to do that consistently, having a good sleep routine, having morning sunlight exposure within 30 to 60 minutes of waking. Sometimes that's hard in San Francisco.
Or if you wake up really, really early.
Right.
Like even having a sun lamp can help in those situations. Because I know coming from a little bit more north, we have parts of the year that is very little sunlight. Like we might have like 6 to 8 hours of sunlight in the day, and it might be overcast and snowing in those months. So
good point.
Yeah, having a sunlight and the light lamp, like you can get them off of Amazon now. I know Philips has one, which is very good. And just getting those UVA.
I think
UVA rays.
Somebody fact check that.
UVB, I don't know.
What, some kind of UV.
UV rays. We'll just go UV rays.
Yeah, the special ones that help.
Exactly. So trying to get on a little bit of sunlight. Also, using breath work, mindfulness, or journaling, that can help us bring that stress level down and also regulate the cortisol levels. Prioritizing your active recovery days, and also scaling back high-intensity workouts if you're feeling burnt out. Now, these are habits that can act as safety signals to your body. By doing these things, it kind of triggers our body to calm down, to be a little more regulated, to lower or decrease, if you will. So what about some supplements?
There's a lot of buzz, especially on social media, about supplements. And there is some things that have some evidence behind it. So the first one is looking at like our adaptogens, so ashwagandha and rhodiola. I personally love rhodiola because there's quite a big body of evidence talking about how it supports energy, and people who have a little bit more chronic stress, it can help. They don't really necessarily understand the mechanisms of action, but there is a big body of evidence. And they've even seen it with the stress response from exercise, modulating that through rhodiola and seeing potentially some performance improvements. Ashwagandha is one that is kind of like an age-old stress and cortisol response. Again, we don't completely understand the mechanism of action, but there is quite a bit of body of evidence that it does work. And what I usually say for these two, it's kind of figuring out which one works better for you. So I know some people, they try ashwagandha, they don't really notice much of a difference, and they switch to rhodiola, it works better for them. Everyone's different. If you're going through a period where you are under stress or you're dealing with higher cortisol, you have to kind of try them. Magnesium is one that is really good. We talked about magnesium-rich food. So magnesium supplements, specifically glycinate or citrate before bed, can really help to calm the nervous system down. Like, woosah, all is good. And it helps with sleep. I know I really use magnesium quite a bit for that purpose, and I find that it works really well for me. And to be honest, in North America, our soil is very deficient. Our water is so purified that we don't get the same amount of magnesium as other parts of the world. So for a lot of us, especially if you're physically active, we probably need to be supplementing with magnesium. There is, I don't even know how to pronounce this, phosphatidylserine. Does anyone want to step in and help me pronounce it?
Phosphatidylserine.
Yeah. So Siri's going to help us pronounce it or not. So it has been shown in people that have like really high stress, it can help reduce cortisol spikes. And I was looking at the evidence around this, and actually is quite good body of evidence, even though I can't pronounce it. We can maybe leave it in the show notes what the supplements are. Yeah. So then you know exactly how to spell things, because obviously we cannot.
Wait, give me a chance. Phosphatidylserine.
Oh, I like that.
Phosphatidylserine.
I think that sounds nice.
Thank you.
It's phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine.
Okay, whatever.
Phosphatidylserine.
I like
I've
it.
heard about it before. Other supportive options. So we talked a lot about like people that maybe have some chronic illness or inflammation or autoimmunes. Omega-3s are really supportive from an anti-inflammatory, and like really for the rest of us, yeah, maybe the evidence around cardiovascular disease is out, but it does still have a lot of positive benefits for our body. Brain health, inflammation, it's good for us to have. And then L-theanine is another one that is the active ingredient in green tea. I would not suggest having green tea straight up before you go to bed, but the active ingredient L-theanine is excellent as a sleeping and calming agent at nighttime, especially combined with magnesium. I find that combination can really help with the kind of tired but wired sleep issue. As always, we are talking about general supplements, so this by no means is a prescription for you to go out and start adding all these supplements to your life. Talk to a dietitian that is working with you one-on-one, talk to your physician, make sure that this isn't going to interfere with any other medication you're in, any other chronic conditions. Make sure you're considering if you're pregnant, but these can generally help with cortisol levels.
So moving on, we want to talk about why exercise raises cortisol.
And the fear-mongering that's out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Basically, we have been hearing a lot of clients ask us the same question, which is, can I exercise intensely because I heard on social media or from a friend or at a coffee shop or whatever, people are buzzing about this concept that in particular women, if they exercise intensely, it raises their cortisol and it actually causes them to not be able to lose body fat, or even worse, maybe start putting on additional body fat. So there's a lot of women out there who are terrified to do intense exercise.
And there's 3 that I've heard that people are like, I shouldn't do this at all. And so it's like, I've heard like, oh, I shouldn't do CrossFit, I shouldn't do F45, and I shouldn't do Orange Theory, because those 3 are too intense. It's going to spike my cortisol.
I had a client who would not run. She was afraid to run, and she was a runner, and she had stopped running and was only doing incline walking on the treadmill because she was afraid running was too intense.
3, 10, 30. Speed 3, incline 10, 30 minutes a day. That's the myth right now. So you should do this if you're trying to manage your cortisol. It's the only way to exercise as a woman.
Wow. I haven't heard of that particular breakdown, but I do hear it a lot, specifically with my peri and postmenopausal women. There is a big push right now on social media, and some very well-known authors who have produced some books all about hormones and menopause, who are saying absolutely not, in no way, shape, or form should women be doing high-intensity exercise. So that's HIIT, cardio, anything like that. Burpees. No burpees, guys. Ladies.
I kind of hate burpees.
It's such a sad thing.
I would not miss burpees.
I don't like burpees.
Okay, adding on there for males too, like I was watching this reel yesterday, I don't know, I went down a rabbit hole. It was this guy who was a runner who was talking about like, I shouldn't lift weights as a runner because it's going to spike my cortisol. And he was going on a rant about it, and he was basically putting down all of his friends that were all lifters, saying that they're screwed.
I was actually talking to my husband about this. I was ranting, and he was probably dissociating because he's heard me talk about this way too much. But when we think about exercise and we think about how we make progress in terms of like VO2 max, or even in terms of just being able to PR what you're lifting, all of that, what's the thing that we need in order to get better when we're trying to improve our fitness? It's intensity. If you're exercising without intensity, are you going to ever make progress? The answer is no. So if we actually pause and use common sense here, use our logical brains for a second, this advice just doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. And so many people are making this theory popular by, again, fear-mongering, making us being scared, and diving into what the fear is again, I go back to peri and postmenopausal women, is the fear because we're already struggling with this weight gain, the increase of our fat mass, the decrease of our muscle mass, all these other aspects that are just part of, unfortunately, this time of our life. So by playing into that, it really, really makes this a very scary thing. And why not try it? Why not give up what's hard, per se, in order to lose weight? How does that work?
Well, and I mean, if you're working really, really hard and you're not seeing the results that you want to see, and someone says, don't work as hard. I mean, how sexy is that? Like, oh, okay, I can just walk instead of trying harder. Like,
Can I try that?
that sounds awesome, right? I feel like it's a really easy sell.
I have tried that over the last few months. Not on purpose for that reason.
How's that going for you?
Not so well. The scale's gone up about 10 pounds, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the science a little bit here. I want to talk about why exercise raises cortisol temporarily. So when you're exercising in an intense way, so your heart rate is very elevated, your body will see that physical strain as stress. So your cortisol is going to rise so that you can mobilize energy. So that helps us to break down fat and glycogen for energy. It helps us to maintain our blood pressure and our blood sugar, and it helps reduce inflammation during tissue strain. So it's important for our cortisol to go up when we're exercising with intensity. It's very natural, very normal, and it actually helps us to do the hard work that we're trying to do. That spike is short-lived. It usually normalizes within 1 to 2 hours post-exercise, and it's beneficial in people who are adapted or who are already fit, and those of us who are trying to become that. So why is this not a problem, Alicia?
Acute elevation spikes or elevation of like in the short term, it's normal, it's healthy. The big issue arises if we aren't doing the proper fueling or recovering or sleep to help bring it down. That's where the problem really arrives. If you're constantly like stressed out and we're trying to push the intensity and we're not doing the things to take care of ourselves, yeah, that's where it becomes problematic. It really comes back to, hey, you know what, those short bursts of pushing yourself, that exercise, it helps over the long term with cortisol regulation. It helps with that HPA axis that we discussed. It helps the normal function of that. And you might actually have lower resting cortisol if you're someone that's active, someone that's pushing yourself on a regular basis, and you might have better daily rhythms.
So it's literally the opposite of what they're saying.
Yeah.
So if you're exercising regularly with intensity and you're getting those regular normal spikes in your cortisol, it actually helps your body to better regulate its own cortisol levels. And people who are more physically fit have lower resting cortisol levels.
Can you repeat that for the people in the back?
Right. I think I should just mic drop and walk out. Like that's the whole point. Like,
No, but say it one more time, because honestly, I think that's what people miss.
yeah. So, I mean, to reiterate, it's literally the opposite of what the person at the cafe drinking a cappuccino next to you is trying to tell her friend that you overhear. It's the opposite of what these fitness influencers who are fear mongering.
The green powdered biddies.
The green powder biddies. And some of the people that are touting this stuff are highly educated, and they sound very articulate and they're very convincing. And that's part of why many people buy into this idea, but the science does not agree with that. So you can keep exercising with intensity. You can keep pushing yourself hard. You can keep trying to level up in your fitness, and it's not going to be harmful for most individuals as long as you have all of those other pieces in place. So we need to recover. We need to sleep well. We need to get our rest and digest. We need to focus on balance.
Yeah. Like it becomes a problem only if you are overtraining without the rest and recovery. If you're constantly just trying to push yourself all the time and not taking that downtime. I know we talked about this with Erin as well. Like that downtime is crucial. That's how you actually become fitter, and that's how you actually regulate a lot of your hormones in your body. The underfueling piece, so if you're trying to like do all those fasted training sessions first thing in the morning when you crack your eyes open and I'm just gonna go, that's not gonna work. If you're trying to push low carb or keto and trying to push yourself really hard, especially on an endurance side, that's probably not gonna be working well for you. If you have like a chronic life stress, or you're someone that you're going through an acute trauma, or you're sleep deprived, that's probably not gonna be, like cortisol might be more of a problem. And if you are jumping from being in a lower state of training and all of a sudden you're trying to push everything really fast, if you're not doing that proper progression, yes, this might be a problem. We want to make sure that we're kind of taking that all into consideration. And in the situations where cortisol might be chronically elevated, there are some consequences. We can see the muscle break down, we can see fatigue, we can see getting sick all the time, we can have a lot of sleep issues, but it's because not necessarily that the exercise is causing it, it's because we're not doing the other things to balance out the exercise.
So to wrap up, to tie a nice little bow on it, what we want to come away with is that cortisol is not the enemy. We need it. We need that stress hormone in our life. We want to have the goal to be balanced, not elimination. You're not always trying to take that cortisol out completely. Like we said, it is actually necessary and can be incredibly beneficial. We want to prioritize our sleep, consistent meals, managing our stress and our hydration, as well as daily movement. And supplements can help, but foundational habits are what matters most. And that your body responds to consistency, not extremes. And we see that in all aspects of our lives. So, what we'd love for you to do is share this episode with someone who's running on empty. And if you want tailored support, book a one-on-one consult with our team. You can follow us on Instagram at the Nutrition Digest, and we're also on Spotify and on YouTube. So thank you very much, and we hope you stay calm, cool, and collected, but don't stress too much about that cortisol. Have a great day.